Hello, students. In our previous class, we were reading the chapter in the Kingdom of Fools, and we read that a burglar broke into a rich merchant's house, and when he was trying to escape with his loot, the wall collapsed and he died on the spot. His brother went to the king and demanded compensation for his death. He said that the thief, his brother, was pursuing his ancient trade, that means ancestral trade business, and he was killed because the wall was built weak. So he said that justice should be done. The king also promised that he would be given justice. The king called the merchant and told him that his wall had killed a poor burglar. The merchant said that the wall was built by a bricklayer and he should be punished because the materials provided to him were of good quality. So he should be punished for making a weak wall. The bricklayer was called and he blamed a dancing girl, and he said that while he was making the wall, a dancing girl kept on moving up and down into the street with her anklets jingling, and he could not concentrate on his work. So he made a weak wall. The dancing girl was summoned to the court, and the dancing girl also pleaded the king that before he should provide the verdict, he should listen to her. He also said that she paced up and down into the wall because of the blacksmith, because of the jeweler, goldsmith, whom she had given some gold to make some pieces of jewelry. But he kept on making excuses and she had to pace up and down from the goldsmith to her house. And that's why the bricklayer was distracted. So now let's continue the chapter further. Poor thing, she is absolutely right, thought the king, weighing the evidence. And then when the king listened to the words of the dancing girl, he said that she is right. The jailer was responsible for making her up and down. And if he had not made excuses, she would have not paced up and down, and then the brick would not have been built weak. Get the goldsmith wherever he is hiding. And he at once had ordered his men, that the bricklayer should be summoned to the court. We have got the real culprit at last. And the king said to himself that at last he had managed to get the real culprit, who was responsible for the death of the poor thief. Get the goldsmith wherever he is hiding. At once, the king's banished the person from the court. They went to the goldsmith and they caught him, they brought him to the king. It's true, I made this dancer come many times to my door, and he accepted that he had made many excuses to the dancing girl, and for that she had to pace up and down. And that distracted the attention of the bricklayer, so he made a weak wall. I gave her excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's order. And he accepted that he could not finish her order because he had to finish the orders of a rich merchant. He had to complete the rich merchant's order for jewelry. They had a wedding, and he also said that the rich merchant who had placed order for the jewelry had a wedding in their house. So that rich merchants were regularly pressurizing him, insisting him that his order should be confirmed, his order should be completed first. And they wouldn't wait. You know how impatient rich men are. And he also told the king that rich men are very impatient. And that merchant also kept on insisting, pressurizing him that his order should be completed first. Who is this rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry? And then he asked the jeweler, who was the rich merchant who stopped the jeweler from completing the dancing girl's orders, made her walk up and down, which distracted the bricklayer. So if he had not made excuses, she would have not made up and down, walked up and down. It would have not distracted the bricklayer. He would have not made a weak wall, and that weak wall would have not collapsed and killed that poor thief. The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. And then, when the name was told to the king was surprised because it was the same merchant whose wall had collapsed and killed the thief. Now justice had come full circle. Then the king said, the justice had come to a full circle. That means the case started from the rich merchant and it went all around and again reached to a particular merchant. Now justice has come full circle, thought the king, back to the merchant. When he was rudely summoned back to the court, he arrived crying, and this time, for the second time, when the merchant came to the court, when he was summoned to the court, this time he came crying. It wasn't me, but my father who ordered the jewelry. And the merchant said, it was not he who had placed order for the jewelry, but it was his father. He is dead. I am innocent. And he said that he was innocent. He had not placed order for the jewelry, but it was his father who is dead now. But the king consulted his ministers and ruled decisively. It's true, your father is the true murderer. And the king had discussion with his minister, and he said that it was true that the real murderer was his father. He is dead, but somebody must be punished in his place. So he is dead now. So somebody must be punished. Unless somebody is punished, the poor dead thief was not going to get justice. So justice was must. So somebody must be punished. You have inherited everything from that criminal father of yours. And the king told the merchant that he had inherited everything from his father. His property, his house, his belongings, everything, his business. He had inherited everything from his father. His riches as well as his sins. So whatever sins his father had done, that must be inherited by him. If he is inheriting everything, his property, so his sins should also be inherited by him only. I knew at once, even when I first set eyes on you. And the king told him that for the first time when he saw the merchant, he understood that he was the root cause of everything. And he ordered a new stake to be made ready for execution. And then he ordered his men to make a new stake. Stake, that means a pole, a structure of wood to hang someone. As the servants sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal. Impaling means hanging. The stake was made, it was ready for hanging the criminal. It occurred to the minister that the rich merchant was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. So when the final arrangement was made, the stake was ready, and the final time came to hang the merchant. The minister felt that the rich merchant was very thin to be hanged on the stake. His neck would not fit the stake. He appealed to the king's common sense. The king too worried about it, and he told the king about his worry. The king also looked worried when he saw that the stake was not suitable for the thin, rich merchant. What shall we do? He asked his minister. He said, when suddenly it struck him that all they needed to do was to find a man fat enough to fit the stake. And then idea came to him that somebody must be punished, whoever it was. And then only the final justice would be done. Either it was the rich merchant or anybody from the kingdom, that particular person should be punished. And that person who needed to be punished, to be hanged, must be fat, whose neck would fit that stake. And then he ordered his men to go throughout the kingdom and find a particular man who would be fat enough to fit the stake. And their eyes fell on the disciple who had fattened himself for months on bananas and rice and wheat and ghee. And when they were searching for a fat man, the soldiers' eyes fell on the disciple of the Guru who had stayed behind. And he had been consuming, eating ghee, bananas, fruits for months, and he had become very fat. The soldiers, the ministers saw him. What have I done wrong? I am innocent. I am sannyasi, he cried. And when he was arrested, he said that he was a sannyasi, he was innocent. What he had done, they must tell him about his fault. That may be true, but it is the royal decree that we should find a man fat enough to fit the stake. And the ministers, the soldiers said that it might be true that he was innocent, but it was a royal decree, a royal order, the order from the king, that they should find a particular man fat enough to fit the particular stake where he should be hanged. They said and carried him to the place of execution, the place where he was to be executed. He remembered his wise Guru's word, and now when he had launched himself in problem, he remembered the wise words of his Guru. His advice of his Guru. This is a city of fools. You don't know what they will do next. While he was waiting for death, he prayed to his Guru in his heart, and he remembered the last words of his Guru, that they were in the country of fools. They can launch themselves in problems. And when he was waiting to be executed, he was praying in his heart for his Guru to come and save him. While he was waiting for death, he prayed to his Guru in his heart, asking him to hear his cry wherever he was. The Guru saw everything in vision. The Guru saw everything in his vision and heard his request, cries. He had magic powers. He could see far. He could see the future and he could see the present and past. So he was a very renowned person, and he could even see the past, future, and present of a person. He arrived at once to save his disciple, who had got himself into such a scrape through love of food. So he himself had landed himself into problem for his greed. So the Guru came to help his disciple. As soon as he arrived, he scolded the disciple and told him something in a whisper. So he directly went to the disciple and he scolded him for not listening to his advice. And he whispered something into his ears. Then he went to the king and addressed him. And then after whispering something into the disciple's ear, he went to the king and addressed him, "O wisest of king, who is greater, the Guru or the disciple?" He directly went to the king and asked him, who was greater? Who was greater, the Guru or the disciple? Of course, the Guru. The king said, of course, the Guru was greater than the disciple. And he told the Guru why he asked such questions. Then put me to the stake first. Put my disciple to death after me. And then he told the king that he should put him, that means the Guru, on the stake first. And after him, the disciple should be put to death. When the disciple heard this, he understood and began to clamor. And when the disciple heard that his Guru said that he should be hanged first and after him he should be hanged, he understood the plan of his Guru and he shouted, began to clamor, "Me first, you brought me here first, put me to death first." And clamor, that means to demand something with hue and cry, to shout for something. Then when he understood his Guru's plan, and he told the king that he should be hanged first, because he was born first there, so he should be hanged first, and after that his Guru should be hanged. The Guru and the disciple now got into a fight about who should go first, and both the Guru and the disciples, they launched themselves into a dispute, an argument. The Guru said that he should be hanged first. the disciple said that he should be hanged first. So there was an argument between both the disciple and the Guru. The king was puzzled at this behavior. The king was puzzled, shocked that the both Guru and disciple were fighting, arguing that they should be hanged first. He asked the Guru, "Why do you want to die?" The king went to the Guru and asked him why he wanted to die. "We choose him because we need a fat man for the stake." And the king told the Guru that he was going to hang the disciple because they wanted a fat man, a healthy man who could fit the stake for the execution. "You should ask me such questions. Put me to that." And then the Guru said that he shouldn't ask him such question. According to the king, Guru was greater, so he should be hanged first. Replied the Guru, "Why? There is some mystery." And then the king went to ask the Guru if there was some mystery. "As a wise man, you must make me understand." And he told the Guru that he was a wise man, and if there was any mystery, then he must tell the king. "Will you promise to put me to that if I tell you?" asked the Guru. The Guru first told the king that he must promise that he will tell him the mystery, why he wanted to die first. But for that, the king must promise him that after listening the secret, the mystery, he should put him to the stake first, and his disciples should be next after him. The king gave him his solemn word. The king promised him that after listening to the mystery, the secret, he would put him to death first. The Guru took him aside out of the servant's earshot and whispered to him. And then the Guru took the king aside so that whatever he was going to tell the king, nobody should be able to hear him. "Do you know why we want to die right now, the two of us?" And he asked the king if he knew why both the disciple and the Guru, they were quarreling, they were fighting that he should be hanged first. "We have been all over the world, but we have never found a city like this or a king like you." He said that throughout their life they had been wandering from one place, one kingdom to other, but they have never come to such a beautiful kingdom, such a wise king like him. That stake is the stake of good God of justice. And he also said that the newly prepared stake was God of justice. It is new. It has never had a criminal on it. So a criminal is always hanged. An honest man, a good man is never hanged on a stake. So the Guru said that particular stake is newly built. It is the God of justice, and it is newly, not even a single criminal has been hanged on it. So it is very pious, sacred. Whoever dies on it first will be reborn as the king of this country. And he told the king the mystery, why he was fighting, why he wanted to die first, why he wanted to be hanged first. So he told the king, whoever will be hanged on the stake first will be reborn as the king of that country. And whoever goes next will be the future minister of this country. And the person who will be hanged next will become the minister of that country. We are sick of our ascetic life. And he told the king that they are sick of going wandering from one kingdom to the other and begging for survival. Now they also want to enjoy the comforts of life. It would be nice to enjoy ourselves as king and minister for a while. And he said that it would be very nice that when he would be hanged first, he would be reborn as the king, and his disciple, after being hanged, will be born as the minister will be the future minister of the kingdom. So they also want to enjoy the riches, the comforts and luxuries of life for some while. So he told the king that now he should put him to death first. The king was now thrown into deep thought. He didn't want to lose his kingdom to someone else in the next town, and the king was now lost in a deep thought. He did not want to lose his kingdom to some saint or some other person. He needed time, so he needed time to have deliberation, to have discussion, to think over this issue, over the matter. So he ordered the execution postponed to the next day. So he ordered that the execution should be postponed for the next day, and talked in secret with his minister and told what the Guru had told him, the secret about being hanged first. It is not right for us to give our kingdom to other in next life. And he told the minister that he did not want to give his kingdom to some other person. Let's go on the stake ourselves and we will be reborn as king and minister again. And he told about his plan that they should go to the stake, they should hang themselves. The king would be hanged first, so he will be born as the king of the country, and the minister should be hanged next, so he would be the future minister of the country again in his next life. Holy men do not tell lies, and he also told the minister that holy men, saints, they never tell lies. He has a vision, and he might have seen the future. He said, and the minister also agreed that they both should hang themselves. So he told the executioners, "We will send criminals tonight. When the first man comes to you, put him to death first." He went to the executioners and told him that at the particular night, the criminals would come to him one by one. When the first person comes, they should hang him first, and when the second criminal comes, he should be hanged second. Those are my orders. Don't make any mistake. And he warned the executioner that he should not commit any mistake. The person who is going to come first should be hanged first, and the person who would come next should be hanged next. That night, the king and his minister went secretly to the prison, released the Guru and the disciple. The king and the minister went to the prison. They released the Guru and his disciple, and arranged beforehand with loyal servants, were taken to the stake and promptly executed. And then they had some loyal servants. They had told them about their plan, and they got themselves executed. When the bodies were taken down to be thrown to crows and vultures, the people panicked. When the bodies were taken in the morning to be thrown to the vultures, when the face marks were removed, the people of the kingdom were shocked. They saw before them the dead bodies of the king and the minister. The dead body of the king and the minister was lying before them. The city was in confusion. Now the city was in confusion. How did the king and the minister got hanged? And now what was going to be the future of the kingdom? Who was going to rule it? All night they mourned and discussed the future of the kingdom. Mourned to express sadness, to express grief over the death of the king and the minister. And they also thought about the future of the country, the kingdom. Who was going to rule now? Who was going to be the king? Some people suddenly thought of the Guru and the disciple and caught up with them as they were preparing to leave the town unnoticed. And then they were reminded. They remembered the Guru and the disciple. They went immediately to their place where they were staying, and they found that they were trying to sneak off. They were trying to go away from the town without being noticed. "We people need a king and a minister," said someone. And when they went to the Guru, they told him, someone said that they needed a king and a minister to rule the country. Others agreed. They begged the Guru and the disciple to be their king and their minister. And they begged the Guru that he should be the king and the disciple should be the minister of their country. They begged the Guru and the disciple to be their king and their minister. It didn't take many arguments to persuade the disciple. So, after regular request, the disciple was convinced to be the minister of the country. But the Guru wasn't still convinced. But it took longer to persuade the Guru. They finally agreed to rule the kingdom of the foolish king and the silly minister. So the Guru agreed to become the king. But he agreed to rule the kingdom, the country of the foolish king and the silly minister on the condition that they could change all the old laws. So he laid a condition before the countrymen, that he will rule the country only when they will change the old laws, the odd laws. From then on, night would again be night and day would again be day. And from then, when the Guru became the king, night was again treated as night and day as day. That means at night the people slept, during day all the activities were performed. The business, shops, everything, day activities were performed. And you could get nothing for a dudu. And now nothing had fixed price like a dudu. Everything had different prices according to their value. It became like any other place. So now it became a very happy country, a happy kingdom. Everything was normal regarding work, regarding business. Everything was same, and people were living a very prosperous, happy life under the leadership of the king and the minister. Thank you.